On a more positive note, did you see it was in the news? It was on Renee. Well, now her slave name was Renee Young, right? But now her name she's allowed to use is Renee Paquette. Correct?
The other name she could use is Renee Good. She's married to John Moxley, and his last name is Good.
There's all kinds of lines. If I'd been able to prepare about how good that John may be and etc. But Renee Good, it should be Renee Great. Renee Fine, I don't know. Anyway,
I didn't know you were such a fan.
She's better than he is. I've said that many times. She's natural. She was most of these young ladies, B-I-M-B-O and Bimbo were their names.
Oh, come on.
Are just standing there because they look good. It's the Sable effect. They look good in a still shot, and they've got the large upper frontal protuberances, and they've spent 5 hours in makeup, and they robotically, in a Stepford wife fashion, ask a concocted question to get a completely different response, and they don't speak again. There's no interaction whatsoever. Renee Young actually acted like a female sports analyst you would see on CBS, on basketball, or on whatever the case, a sports network, whatever. So, and she definitely seems to have a better grip on the business than her husband, because she's usually worried about him when he's sticking thumbtacks in his head or bashing himself with some blunt instrument. But anyway, she's got a podcast, apparently, which CM Punk was on. And I was teased into watching this clip by the provocative title, CM Punk reveals what it would take to bring him back into wrestling. I want to hear this myself. And it would listen to it. It was not. And by the way, he sang good. He has a good morning song he sings to his dog. And he had his dog there with him and sang it to him. So already Punk is more over with me than most people in the business these days. But anyway, it wasn't a revelatory statement or a big shocking occurrence, what he said, and that he said, well, basically boiling it down, I'm not trying to spoil it, but it would take a shitload of money and something that he was interested in doing. Well, I guess what it boils down to, that's kind of obvious. But it was not a revelation in that respect, but it was revelatory in that, again, the son of a billionaire with a national cable television show just got in the wrestling business and made a bunch of indie guys that never had it and never will as happy as schoolgirls with shiny new vibrators. But CM Punk can't get happy? He can't make CM Punk happy? Nobody can think of an idea that CM Punk would be interested in, that would intrigue him enough to get involved in this. If there's a fish out there that has the Goldilocks and the Three Bears combination of not too hot, not too cold, just right between, has he been on TV recently and been beaten into powder or been portrayed in a negative light so that we are now trying to take a guy and make him into a top star? Or is he the guy that's been off TV for so long that really, we don't know what the fuck's going on with him. He probably can't hang physically with these younger guys. Or is he the icon from 30 years ago that they bring back and make all the current guys look bad because even though the icon can't get in the ring and can't go anymore, he's still more over and a bigger star than the rest of their roster. He doesn't fit any of those. He's the right combination. He was a huge star in the biggest company in the world just several years ago, not 30. He wasn't on the bad TV that same company has done over the last couple of years to where everybody's sick to fucking death of seeing him. His foray into MMA didn't go well in terms of a one-loss record, but it showed that at least if he was going to commit to something, he was going to follow it through. But now the bad taste, if any, in anybody's mind is kind of off of that. He can still go physically in the ring because anybody that was fighting professionally in the UFC just a couple of years ago, I'm sure he's still in pretty good shape. Everybody knows who the fuck he is. And he would probably, here's a key thing, he would probably be palatable to the people who like anything but the WWE because he was so anti-WWE, the pipe bomb, telling off Triple H, leaving on his own terms. And he's indie at heart, but at the same time, he's not going to go out there and have some goofy indie garbage match like everybody else would be having because he's smart enough to know that he can be a serious main event player in a serious promotion, and he would demand that his shit, he would be dealing with stars and connect with people. He's the fish. He's the big fish. And okay, after you got Jericho and you got Dean Ambrose, tell me anybody else on that roster that could even, I'm not saying that their reaction was as good as what CM Punk's might be, but tell me anybody else on that roster that could, in terms of star power, in terms of name recognition, in terms of still being young enough to go in this generation, but from a previous bigger generation, the whole 9 yards, who else they got? Why wouldn't they have gone there?
I think AEW tried to go there, and I think CM Punk, from what I heard, he didn't think very much of their attempt to negotiate via text message. And I don't know how.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're telling me that all these other guys on this fucking roster that are getting paid 5 or 10 times as much as anybody else ever paid them to wrestle or do anything else, just because the guy in charge of giving out the money had no idea what the financials of wrestling actually were and or what the fuck he was buying into. And unfortunately, his advisors apparently weren't honest with him in that regard. But you can't tell me that you can't. The guy just said, for a shit ton of money and something interesting to do, you can't. You're a billionaire, and you've got a wrestling company on national television, and you can't fulfill those two things for a guy like CM Punk. But you can somehow get Pockets and the entire Dwarf Dong Sucker family to come to terms just like that. Tell me somebody else they can get right now that's not under contract to the evil empire that would shake things up like that one name, CM Punk.
That's not under contract. Kevin Nash. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, and
there aren't too many guys.
Let me limit this to wrestlers they can sign that can actually wrestle, that can have matches. Who would be a bigger get?
I don't know if there is a bigger get right. I mean, The Rock. I don't think.
Okay, and that is possible in this dimension.
Yeah.
And somebody out there is going to say, well, I said that about Sting. No, I can assure you, if The Rock ain't going to wrestle for Vince, The Rock ain't going to wrestle.
Although, I mean, I don't know. If Turner wanted to get involved.
No. I'm guaranteed.
And say, hey, we're gonna buy the rights to one of your shows, or we're gonna do a whole month of movies of The Rock, movies for guys who don't want to watch movies anymore.
He's got networks buying his shows, and besides it, put this down. Tell old Jay Sharknado to write this down, make note of this in the editing process. I want this clip ready to be brought back up. If The Rock ever appears, wrestles, or even appears on the television of AEW opposite Vince McMahon for any reason, I will nail my balls to a step stool on Broadway in Louisville, Kentucky.
Like, just to be clear, you're not saying against WWE, you're saying against Vince McMahon.
Well, it's the same thing.
It's not the same thing. If Vince dies tomorrow, is Rocky still beholden to WWE?
Oh, well, now you got me scared for my balls.
I'm scared for the city of Louisville.
Well, as well you should be. I don't think I think The Rock would still consider the WWE, even after Vince is gone, the premier organization. I don't think that he would ever want to do something for a secondary company at this point. If he does anything else, wrestles ever again, it'll probably be to put Roman Reigns over. And obviously I think everybody understands why that The Rock can pick anything that he wants to do in life from here on out. So it wouldn't be like, well, Tony Khan will give him $50 million. I don't think he gives a fuck about $50 million. If it wasn't something The Rock wanted to do.
Let me ask you this, going back to Punk. Let's just say Tony got a raise in his allowance. And he had even more money to play with, enough money that's not the issue with getting Punk. So let's say Punk says, okay, the money, no problem, that's good. Then it becomes based around the idea of something interesting, something he would want to do. He, I'm sure, I don't know how much he watches, is aware of the booking of this television show and this promotion. If he even entertained it because of the money, should he insist on creative control?
Well, another thing he said in this interview was, she said, she asked him, well, what kind of thing would that be in some way or another? I can't remember exact words, but the thing he would be interested in. And he said, well, I don't know. He said, that's not my job to come up with. It's sort of like.
So he doesn't want creative control then. That's interesting.
Well, no, he didn't. He didn't say that. He said, I didn't say I don't want creative control. He said, that's not my job to come up with. And I think he's considering it like, well, somebody should have an idea on how to use me, which.
He's gotten very used to people pitching projects to him.
Well, here's the thing also. If it was me and a wrestling promotion called me, I would want to hear that they had at least put enough thought. Even if I was going to change every single fucking thing about it, which I probably would, but I would only tweak things. I wouldn't, goddamn, they wouldn't start out with a chicken dinner and I wouldn't turn it into fucking seafood. But I would want them to have thought about something and put thought into something that I specifically would be needed for. Not that bring in a manager or bring in a guy or bring in a heel or whatever, but no, we need Jim Cornette or we need CM Punk. Having said that, I think he'd be the same way if they came to him with something that was half-ass serious and legitimate and that they'd put thought into, even if it was kind of fucked up, if he was into the concept of working with so-and-so, X guy, I don't know who that would be, then he would probably come back and say, well, no, what about if we did this and change it up and blah, 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 and do his own thing to it. Which if he's smart, because he's seen that, these guys are amateurs. And one thing, he took pretty good care of himself, that last little run there. He was smart enough too. So I think he knows better than anybody, just like any top guy knows better than anybody, how to get himself over or something that he would do or should be involved in. And that's when you sit down and work shit out with guys. As we've talked about, what Pat Patterson was so good at. Is sitting down and just letting guys work out their own shit, but putting it in the right place or in the right order or in the right context or whatever. But how
would you use him in AEW?
Good Lord. Off the top of my head,
you're bringing him in. I'm not saying book out the next 3 years, but you're bringing him in.
I'd give him a baseball bat. Just tell him to go clean out the locker room, come back and let me know. No, well, here's the thing, and what I was going to say before you hit me with that question, how would I do it, is who would he want to or who should he work with in AEW? I think the only person he mentioned, there's so many people I haven't worked with Omega or the Bucks or whatever, it would have to be Cody. Because it would need to be a serious deal. It would need to be something that people could fucking follow and understand, and at the same time the verbal performances would have to be believable.
That's what it is right there. Because he can point out how preposterous Cody is, and he could also say, when you guys were starting this, I'm the guy that you texted, that you wanted to bring in here, and I didn't want anything to do with this. And now I'm here, and I'm going to take a bunch of money, and I'm going to do what I want to do, and they can cut promos back and forth every week, and it would be fantastic.
Yeah, but also not even with that.
Plus, he can work a similar style. Not that Cody's the greatest in the ring, but I don't know about the Young Bucks with CM Punk. I don't know how that would work.
See, that's the thing. That is why there's such schizophrenic matches, which we'll talk about in the review of the program. Such schizophrenic matches because they got all the gymnasts so that Olivier and the Bucks could have somebody to do the play matches with. But those can't be money matches. And whenever somebody like FTR tries to do that shit, it just looks fucking rotten. But that's why I say with Punk, the verbal performances, regardless of which tack they took with it, as far as I was there, blah, 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 what you just said, which was probably better and more thought than they've given it in a year and a half. But just verbally, whatever it was, you would be able to believe that these guys were serious, that they're somewhat stars, that they would be able to have a match that would tear the house down psychologically, that people could follow. Past Cody, Jericho athletically ain't there anymore.
No, I would stay away from that.
Yeah, completely. Plus he wants to be too witty now, and you don't want
CM Punk doing bad comedy. That defeats the
exactly.
purpose.
You don't want CM Punk coming in and being one of the boys and being silly. And also, since everybody knows that Cody's an EVP or whatever, there could be the fucking deal where he's kind of taking the company's side. That's
a good angle right there, though.
But that's saying that Cody could figure out a way to fucking fully make himself the full baby face and let Punk be the full heel. I bet you Punk would probably enjoy being the heel and coming in and telling what he thinks about a lot of people in that company.
He comes in there, he starts cutting promos, just telling the truth about how this sucks, and the owner of this company has his son spending money like a drunken sailor. I decided I'm going to come here and take it. You build up the natural rivalry with him and Cody. They have a match. Winner gets the EVP title. Punk wins because, Dusty's kid has to lose before his big comeback. And then Punk's the executive vice president, and, he gets to kind of do things in a more Discord Records kind of way, a more punk rock kind of way. Shaking things up with Twinkle Toes and the Bucks. That would be good.
I guess we're probably never going to see that, though, because they need to sign another Bulgarian brute that dresses in Versace.
Well, to be fair, I will say, I think it's ridiculous, and this is not how I would use Rusev or Miro, but having spent a good deal of time in Brighton Beach in my life, he is dressing a little bit more like these Eastern European guys who come over here, too, I have to say. I mean, he looks ridiculous, but some of them look ridiculous.
Some of them look ridiculous. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Here's what almost nobody in the AEW locker room has to worry about, folks, and that's shaving their balls.
Well, that was a transition.
There's a transition for you, because the first fruits of puberty have not quite sprouted yet on most of these young men. But I know that we got a pretty hairy audience. So for the hirsute listening to me now in the cult of Cornette, you know what you're going to want for Christmas and for New Year's. You're going to want some nookie. You're closed up in the house. It's cold in most of the country. We've been through a pandemic. Your significant other is probably so starved for sexual attention now, she'll even give you some. So prepare for this now with the fine products from our friends at Manscaped, because Manscaped is here to give you the perfect package 3.0 that has all the right tools for the job. If you've ever wanted a perfect package, folks, here it is. The Lawnmower 3.0, the nick-proof trimmer, has the LED light. It's waterproof. You can, in the twinkling of an eye, take all of the forest down, whack all the weeds, leave everything nice and slick. Also, the crop preserver, the anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. You put deodorant on your armpits. Why are you not putting deodorant down there in the middle of Woolly Swamp? Also, the crop reviver ball toner spray. All of the goods that keep you smelling good and slick and smooth and just as warm and comfortable as a baby's little tummy. And they'll even throw in on this perfect package 3.0 a shed travel bag and the anti-chafing boxer briefs. You notice a pattern here, Brian. They want to keep chafing away from your crotchal area. Folks, you won't want to miss this for the holidays. Jingle balls, slick shaved all the way with Manscaped. What? Oh, what fun it is to shave, Mr. Johnson and his friends today. Hey.
Oh, my God.
Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the code JCE. You can't find this kind of thing anywhere else except right here, folks. I don't know what it is, but you can't find it. 20% off and free shipping with the code JCE at manscaped.com. Happy New Year to the little fellas. Jingle balls, slick shaved all the way. Oh, what fun it is to shave your little balls today. Hey!
Is this a Cornette original? Or is
that actually was an old Rodgers and Hart tune from a musical in the 40s. I can't remember.